Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Bugay. First, this hour, the latest developments from Ukraine. The New Year celebration may be overshadowed by the strict lockdown. This was announced by Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal at the cabinet's meeting. He said that government is considering all scenarios. If the COVID situation aggravates, quarantine restrictions will be enforced. Referring to the rate of the hospitalized COVID patients, Prime Minister added that the bed occupancy remains within the margin of 28,000 for the second week in a row. At the same time, particular local city hospitals lack beds. The government considers additional restrictions together with local authorities.
We are aware that the end of December and the beginning of January is the period of New Year's celebrations, meaning a plenty of meetings, fairs, close contacts between people, and all this can become a trigger to the disease outbreak the medical system could fail to withstand. We work closely with local authorities, mayors and businesses in order to jointly outline a model of anti-epidemic measures.
The Ukrainian authorities plan to start free testing for COVID-19 at the checkpoints of Donbas and Crimea. According to Deputy Minister for Reintegration of the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, Inna Holovanchuk, the service should become available by the end of the year. At the same time, the Ukrainian Ministry of Health launched a new project. It will allow Ukrainians with coronavirus symptoms to call a mobile team to do a PCR test at home.
On November 26, we start the project in a test mode, but of course then it will be working permanently. It will allow anyone to call the contact center for the mobile team. We also realize that the mobile team will be called by people who are ill and have symptoms of COVID-19, and these people certainly need an ambulance.
16 stories and 16 objects that once became a tool for domestic violence. Today, the world marks the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Ukraine joins the worldwide campaign called 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence, holding an exhibition in capital. Our correspondent attended it as well. These are heavy and sharp objects and simple smartphones and even stuffed toys. All these once became instruments of domestic violence.
16 common items which can be easily found in a regular household. Each of them has in one way or another been utilized. In the true cases of domestic violence, each one has a QR code nearby. After scanning one of them, you can hear or read a story told either by a victim or by a witness to domestic violence.
I could read only half of them. I couldn't move further after the nail scissors. Just how many girls in our country still believe that a man is free to forbid walking, working, resting? And how many unknown men are there in Ukraine who are able to take scissors and slit carotid artery in a bout of jealousy?
The main objective of the exhibition is to draw public attention to the problem of violence, to show its horrifying scale, and urge citizens not to be silent but to fight for their own rights. According to the UN data, 2 out of 3 women in Ukraine have been subjected to domestic violence at least once.
Violence has no borders, no race and no nationality. This is a problem that affects everyone. It is trouble that can touch anyone. Violence is not the norm. It has no justification. And although it may be hard to talk about it, we have to do it anyway.
For almost a year, Ukrainian legislation envisages criminal liability for the domestic violence. By a court decision, an offender faces punishment in different forms: community service, 6 months arrest, a limitation of freedom for up to 5 years, or imprisonment for up to 2 years. Over the first 6 months, since the implementation of the law, the police issued almost 9,000 orders.
At present, there are more than 300 mobile patrol brigades providing protection to citizens. We have more than 30 shelters and crisis rooms operating in Ukraine, and another 100 rooms are expected to be opened by 2025. We have created a hotline which provides citizens with access to information.
The exhibition is open 24 hours and is accessible for all willing in the Mikhailivska Square in Kyiv until December 10th. One can also reach the stories exposed through the web portal richutim.org. Reported by Nick Starkov, Vlada Tsurkan, Yuri Shulha, UATV News.
Up next, the film Numbers, based on the play by former political prisoner Oleh Sentsov, is released in cinemas. The story of people who try to break the totalitarian system and gain freedom. Some say is very similar to the attempts of the Crimean Tatars to resist repressions in the occupied Crimea. Our correspondents have attended the special screening.
The movie Numbers, based on the play by Ukrainian director and former political prisoner Oleh Sentsov, has been released in Ukrainian cinemas. The author has been working upon the script remotely while serving an unfair sentence in a Russian prison. The result is now presented to the general public.
I was impressed by this man, by how he managed to write a play. Being in prison, going through psychological and physical harassment, he managed to create such product.
The movie tells a story of an imprisoned society living in a system of special rules that cannot be challenged. However, at one point, the heroes try to overcome their fears, break the rules and find freedom.
The Numbers is a kind of allegory of our life, or political processes taking place not only in the Crimea but in Russia or in Belarus. Many countries have gone through periods of absolutely stupid rules, but they could do nothing with those rules. Therefore, people ready to destroy this system appeared.
Experts and viewers discussed freedom of choice, human rights and political persecution in the occupied Crimea before the film presentation. 111 Ukrainian citizens, including 76 Crimean Tatars, are illegally held in prisons in Russia and in temporarily occupied Crimea.
In present-day Crimea, people are imprisoned for any dissent, for any disagreement with the official policy. At the same time, the loud words such as terrorism, extremism, an attempt to seize power sound in the indictments. However, the prosecutors provide no evidence of those statements and accusations.
In order to facilitate the release of Crimean political prisoners, it is necessary to talk about the problems in every way possible, including through the artistic media, human rights activists believe.
There is an immense number of problems in the world. In order to have at least some attention to the topic of Crimean political prisoners, informational reasons should be created. Art is important because it is a universal language.
Over the past 9 months of the current year, 40 searches were held in Crimea, most of them in the houses of Crimean Tatars. 13 people were sentenced to terms from 3.5 to 19 years under falsified charges of terrorism. Reported by Nick Starkov, Vlada Tsurkan, UATV News.
She left science and became a makeup artist. Tatiana Velasquez was an assistant at the Department of Philosophy at the University of Trade and Economics in Donetsk. In May 2014, after the proclamation of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, she and her husband moved to Kyiv. Our correspondents met with Tatiana and will tell you her story in details.
Доброе утро.
Good morning. Is it you who creates beauty here?
Конечно, это...
Sure, come in.
At present, Tatiana owns 2 makeup salons, but in 2014 she was writing her thesis and worked as an assistant at the Department of Philosophy at Donetsk University of Economics and Trade. After the hostilities in eastern Ukraine, Tatiana and her husband were among the first to leave their home city.
My husband said that I should cease my evening classes of English and take the Ukrainian flag-covered ribbon away from my bag. Step by step, the situation has reached the point when it became unsafe for us to stay in Donetsk.
Having moved to Kyiv, Tatiana did not want to deal with office routine. She decided to change her profession and invested her last money in makeup design. She says she always liked to improvise with makeup. Along with her studies, she practiced wherever possible, though the quarantine has made some adjustments.
начали появляться действительно...
After a while, regular clients appeared, but then in summer of 2014, I used to work with 5 to 10 clients per day in different parts of Kiev. I did makeup in the streets, in subway, near the roads, somewhere in the forest, on horse farms, and so on. Then the cost of my work was $1 or $2. I really had to attract as many clients as possible to earn some money.
Tatiana started her business in a small room rented in a hotel. 6 years later, she became the owner of 2 studios. Besides the makeup services for clients, she also holds master classes.
То, что появилось на карантине...
The Instagram account with some tutorials we made at the beginning of quarantine is now being transformed into a fully functional online school.
Tatiana says she's never been obsessed with making money. The main thing for the woman is to realize herself in her favorite profession. Reported by Nick Starkov, Inessa Zanina, UATV News.
Kind-hearted knowledge. Odesa volunteer Valentina Malko collects books to pass them to orphanages and boarding schools. Most of all, small readers like encyclopedias and fairy tales with bright pictures. Our correspondent got acquainted with charitable activities and will share details with you.
Children's literature, textbooks and encyclopedias. All these books were sent from different regions of Ukraine. Valentina Malko has already collected 200 publications in her apartment. They will be sent to orphanages and boarding schools.
We announce the action in Facebook and other different platforms depending on the target audience. People bring us books, send them by mail, we catalog them and then we deliver them to orphanages.
The volunteer has an electronic catalog of collected books. Everyone can see who got his gift. Anastasia and her family decided to present several dozen books.
We decided to help to collect and sort books, put codes so that they could be catalogued later. This is my help.
Volunteer delivered the first batch of books to Odesa boarding school number 6. Its students asked for books with bright pictures.
Our library contains about 20,000 books, including manuals and books for senior children. There were very few books for the younger children. The books we got today are all designed for kids starting in junior classes. That's a great present, because our children are always interested in books.
People sent textbooks, magazines and encyclopedias in different languages with Ukrainian, Russian and English among them. There are even books in Braille. Action organizers also put a sticker calling to take care of books into every present. Reported by Nick Starkov, Anna Horodentsova, UATV News.
That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter pages.